Hello lovely viewers, you are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be discussing the detailed analysis of An African Thunderstorm by David Rubadiri. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. James Davis Rubadiri was born on 19 July 1930. He was a Malawian diplomat, playwright, novelist, and poet. David Rubadiri ranked as one of Africa's most widely anthologized and celebrated poets. He attended King's College in Uganda and then Makerere University in Kampala, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree in English literature and history. Some of his works include the following: Poems from East Africa in 1971, No Bride Prize in 1967, Come to Tea in 1965, and An African Thunderstorm. Have you ever run back into your room after hearing the furious sounds of the thunder? Well, this is expected of anyone who loves his or her life. Thunder in the African society is associated with evil. Therefore, people run away from it in order not to be carried away by this powerful force of nature. The title of the poem, An African Thunderstorm, quickly informs readers of the setting of the poem. The poem has a setting in an African environment, and one can confidently say in a rainy season. Usually, during the rainy season, the coming of the rain is announced by peals of thunderstorms, and in most cases, the thunder destroys anything that acts as an obstacle on its way. An African Thunderstorm is purely a descriptive poem in which imagery is used to present a realistic picture of an event and not necessarily conveying a moral message. The power and value of this poem lies in how vividly it conveys its message to the readers. The poem basically describes the capability of a natural force, which is the thunderstorm, and its ability to inflict pain and destruction on humanity and other elements of nature. It further describes and delves deeper into the complete disorder and havoc which the thunderstorm inflicts on the people. An African Thunderstorm by David Rubadiri is in 3 parts. The first 9 lines of the poem, which begins with "From the West" and ends with "Like a madman chasing nothing," are grouped together as one part. The second part of the poem comprises 6 lines, beginning with the line "Pregnant clouds" and concluding with the line "And trees bend to let it pass." The third and final part of the poem starts with the line "In the village" and goes to the very end of the poem with the line "And the pelting march of the storm." Let's now take a detailed analysis of the lines contained in the poem. From the west, clouds come hurrying with the wind, turning sharply here and there like a plague of locusts, whirling, tossing up things on its tail, like a madman chasing nothing. David Rubadiri opens his poem, An African Thunderstorm, and ushers readers to the swift or quick movement of the clouds and the forming of the thunderstorm. Even though the actions that happen in the poem are very quick, our poetic speaker was able to capture everything from the beginning of the thunderstorm or the starting point of the thunderstorm, which is the west. We are told that the thunderstorm starts from the west. As the poem progresses, we are informed that the clouds come hurrying with the wind, turning sharply here and there. This line suggests a swift movement and the quick happening of the thunderstorms. We then come across the line, like a plague of locusts. This line brings to mind the plague that was cast on Egypt by God due to Pharaoh's disobedience. Just as this plague was very destructive to the Egyptians, our poetic speaker, through the use of imagery, simile, and allusion, compares this suffering, pain, and destruction to that of what the thunderstorm leaves behind. The African thunderstorm comes like a contagious disease and causes a great deal of damage to the people. We also come across a line like a madman chasing nothing. Here again, our poetic speaker uses a simile to compare the aimlessness and the state of mind of a madman to that of the thunderstorm. The African thunderstorm is portrayed as an aimless destructive agent of nature. Again, we come across the line tossing up things on its tail. Here, this line suggests a destructive nature of the storm and its ability to destroy anything on its way. The poet establishes a rough rhythm and a series of patchy pictures which imitates the rugged turbulence of the storm. The wind is pictured like a creature rushing in and out, and like a plague of locusts which leaves destruction and nothing to be desired. The word whirling, which the poet used in the poem as part of the description of the wind, creates a mental picture of a ferocious beast turning frantically this way and that way, using its tail to toss things about. But on a more literal level, one imagines a ferocious whirlwind tossing things up as it spins. The chaos created by the wind is conveyed in the final image of this first part of the poem, like a madman chasing nothing. Even though the wind is presented to us in a swift and fast manner, but the swiftness and movement of the wind accomplishes nothing but havoc and disorder. Pregnant clouds rise stately on its back, gathering to perch on hills. Like black sinister wings, the wind whistles by, and the trees bend to let it pass. Here again, our poetic speaker presents another stage or process in the formation of the thunderstorm. Here, the poet presents a vivid image of the elements of nature that come together to form a thunderstorm. Readers are able to see in the mind's eye the images of the pregnant clouds, hills, and the bending of the trees. The images we come across in this line suggest the threatening of a destructive storm. The pregnant clouds suggest what makes way for the thunderstorm or rain to fall. The force of the wind is so strong that it can destroy anything that stands on its way, just as it is able to bend the trees. This part of the poem focuses a little more on the clouds. They are described as pregnant, that is, they carry rain and are also riding in style on the back of the wind. But suddenly, the clouds are seen as creatures with dark sinister wings, gathering together to perch on the hills. And with this image, the poet gives the clouds a threatening aspect. They are like a swamp of dark flying creatures, preparing to swoop on the people of the defenseless village. And all through this, the wind whistles by, bending the trees as it blows past. However, the poet's image of the trees politely bending to let the wind pass is perhaps a little too fanciful, mild, and serene for this poem, which is essentially about violence, destruction, and havoc. The image seems to suggest that the trees are cooperating out of respect for the wind, when indeed the wind is forcing them to bend. In the village, screams of delighted children toss and turn in the dying of whirling wind. This line seems completely different from the previous lines. Whilst the previous lines focuses and brings images of sorrow, pain, and destruction, this line brings to mind happiness, joy, and excitement. The movement of the storm progresses to the village scene, where the children are described as being happy and in the mood of merriment. The children are jumping and jubilating. For the first time in the poem, the poet introduces us to human beings. and how they behave as the storm bears down on their village. The children are screaming in delight and enjoying the confusing rough by the noisy wind, and they themselves run around aimlessly, very much like the thunderstorm itself. The use of children by the poet is most appropriate for the subject matter being discussed, as children are best known to be carefree and stress-free. This line suggests excitement in the midst of distraction. In spite of the destructive nature of the thunderstorm, it provides a good avenue for children to explore and enjoy themselves. What this line simply means is that nothing is absolutely good or bad. Your reaction to things makes them either good or bad. There are things happening in everyone's life, some of which are destructive, but at the same time, they provide opportunity for creativity and innovation. Inasmuch as these children are jubilating and excited, the poet cautions us on the destructive nature of the thunderstorm. Women, babies cling on their backs, dart about, in and out madly. The wind whistles by, whilst trees bend to let it pass. Here, there is a contrast between the feeling and emotions of the children and the women and their babies. This category of people are greatly affected by the thunderstorm. While the thunderstorm provides an opportunity for the children to celebrate, it brings distraction and mayhem to the women and their innocent babies strapped on their mother's back. Clothing were like tattered flags flying off to expose dangling breasts as spark-blinding flashes rumble, tremble, and crack amidst the smell of fired smoke and the pelting march of the storm. In these lines, we see the destructive wind flying off clothing and in the process exposes the dangling breasts of the women. The poet concludes the poem with images of flashing light, rumbling thunder, and the smell of wood smoke as the rain beats down. The last 4 lines of the poem appeals vividly to the senses of sight, hearing, smell, and touch. Especially interesting in this regard is the sound effect in the line rumble, tremble, and crack. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.